Captain Jake Morrison looked out at the stars through the bridge window of his ship, the New Horizon. Space was quiet and peaceful here in the outer edge of the Kepler system. His crew had been exploring new worlds for 3 months now, looking for places where humans could build colonies. Earth was getting crowded and people needed new homes among the stars. Jake was a tall man with gray hair and steady blue eyes. He had served in the Earth Space Navy for 20 years before taking command of this exploration mission. His crew of 12 were the best he had ever worked with. They were smart, brave, and ready for anything the universe might throw at them. Chief Engineer Lisa Parker sat at her station, watching the ship's power levels. She was a small woman with quick hands and an even quicker mind. Nothing broke on her ship without her knowing about it within seconds. Next to her, Navigation Officer Pete Collins studied star charts on his screen. Pete was young but brilliant at reading space and plotting courses through the most difficult areas. Dr. Amy Ross checked medical supplies in the ship's small hospital. As the only doctor on board, she took care of everyone's health. She was also trained in emergency repairs and could fix almost anything when Lisa was busy. The rest of the crew were busy at their own jobs, keeping the ship running smoothly as they traveled between planets. Everything changed when the alien ships appeared. 1 moment Jake was looking at empty space, and the next moment 5 huge ships surrounded them. The alien vessels were like nothing humans had ever seen. They looked like giant crystals that caught and bent the light from nearby stars. Each ship was 3 times bigger than the New Horizon. "Captain," Pete said, his voice tight with worry. "They just appeared out of nowhere. My sensors didn't pick up anything until they were right on top of us." Jake felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his voice calm. "Open a communication channel. Let's see what they want." The main screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. The creature had pale blue skin and large black eyes. Its head was longer than a human head, and it had no hair. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music, but there was something cold about it. "I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective," the alien said. "You are trespassing in our space. Your primitive vessel will submit to protective custody immediately." Jake stood up straight. "I'm Captain Morrison of the Earthship New Horizon. We're on a peaceful exploration mission. We didn't know this was your territory." Veltar's large eyes seemed to look right through Jake. "Your ignorance does not excuse your violation. The Zephyrian Collective has controlled this sector for 300 of your years. All lesser species must submit to our guidance for their own protection." "Lesser species?" Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. "We're explorers, not conquerors. We can leave your space peacefully." The alien commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "You misunderstand, human. Your species is now under our protection. You will accompany us to a processing facility, where you will learn your proper place in our empire." Lisa looked up from her station. "Captain, they're powering up weapons. 5 ships, all targeting us." Jake's mind raced. The New Horizon was a tough ship, but it was built for exploration, not war. They had some weapons, but nothing that could fight 5 alien warships. Still, something inside him refused to give up without a fight. Humans had never been good at surrendering. "Commander Veltar," Jake said, keeping his voice steady, "we decline your offer of protection. We're going to leave now." The alien's face showed surprise. "You refuse? Your ship is vastly outnumbered. Resistance is pointless." "Maybe," Jake said, "but we're going to try anyway." Veltar stared at him for a long moment. "Very well. We will disable your vessel and take you by force. You will learn that defiance brings only pain." The communication ended, and Jake turned to his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for orders. He saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. These people had volunteered for a dangerous mission far from home. They knew the risks. "Battle stations," Jake said quietly. "Lisa, give me everything the engines have. Pete, plot us a course through their formation. Amy, prepare for casualties." Lisa's fingers flew over her controls. "Rerouting power from life support and non-essential systems. Weapons are charged and ready." Pete studied his screen. Their formation has a gap on the left side. If we can punch through there. Do it, Jake ordered. The New Horizon suddenly shot forward with more speed than the aliens expected. The human ship was smaller and faster than the massive crystal vessels. Jake watched as enemy weapons fire lit up the space around them, but Pete's flying kept them just ahead of the deadly beams. They're trying to box us in, Pete called out. 3 ships moving to cut off our escape route. Jake made a decision that would have seemed crazy to any sane person. All power to forward. Shields, ram the lead ship. His crew didn't question the order. Lisa pushed the engines beyond their safety limits. Pete aimed the ship like a missile at the largest alien vessel. Amy secured everything in the medical bay and prepared for impact. The Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. No intelligent species had ever tried to ram a superior enemy ship. It was suicide. It was impossible. It was completely insane. It worked. The New Horizon smashed into the alien flagship's crystal hull with tremendous force. The impact sent cracks running through the beautiful crystal structure. Alien systems failed as the human ship tore through. Their defenses like they were made of glass. Both ships spun away from each other, damaged but still intact. Jake pulled himself up from where the impact had thrown him. His head was bleeding, but he was alive. Around the bridge, his crew was getting back to their stations. Damage report, he called out. Hull breach on deck 3, but we're sealing it, Lisa reported. Engines are still online, but barely. The alien flagship is dead in space, Pete added. The other 4 ships are pulling back. On the main screen, Commander Veltar's face appeared again. The alien looked shocked and confused. There was something new in those large black eyes. Fear. This is impossible, Veltar whispered. No species fights like this. What are you? Jake wiped blood from his forehead and smiled grimly. We're humans, and we don't give up. The alien ships retreated, leaving the damaged New Horizon floating alone in space. Jake knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would be back with more ships and better plans. But for now, humanity had won its first battle among the stars. What the Zephyrians didn't know was that they had just met a species from a world so dangerous that surviving there had made humans into something the galaxy had never seen before. They were about to learn what it meant to fight Deathworlders. 3 weeks after the battle with the human ship, Scholar Kethran stood in the research lab of the Zephyrian science vessel. His long fingers moved across holographic displays as he studied the data about these strange creatures called humans. As the collective's best xenobiologist, he had been ordered to learn everything possible about this new species that had done the impossible. Kethran was different from most Zephyrians. While his people were warriors and conquerors, he was a scientist who loved learning about other life forms. His purple-tinted skin was paler than most of his kind, and his black eyes held curiosity instead of the cold calculation that marked most military Zephyrians. He had studied over 400 different species in his long career, but none had puzzled him like the humans. The data from the battle made no sense. The human ship was smaller, weaker, and carried primitive weapons, compared to Zephyrian technology. Yet somehow they had damaged Commander Veltar's flagship and forced an entire battle group to retreat. More disturbing was the tactical analysis of the human captain's decision to ram their ship into the much larger alien vessel. Computer, analyze the ramming attack again, Kethran said to his research system. The holographic display showed the battle from multiple angles. Kethran watched as the human ship accelerated directly toward certain destruction. Any rational species would have surrendered when faced with such overwhelming odds. The fact that humans chose to attack instead suggested something fundamentally different about their psychology, but the real shock came when Kethran began researching the human homeworld. Computer, display planetary classification for the world called Earth. The hologram changed to show a blue and green planet rotating slowly in space. Numbers and classifications appeared around it, and Kethran felt his blood turn cold as he read them. Class 12. Deathworld, he whispered. That's impossible. Class 12 was the highest danger rating given to any world. These were planets so hostile that even brief exposure would kill most galactic species. In 3 centuries of expansion, the Zephyrian collective had never encountered a species that evolved on anything higher than a Class 7 world. Kethran's hands shook as he dove deeper into the Earth data. The gravity was 1.8 times the galactic standard. Most species would be crushed under their own weight on such a world. The atmospheric pressure was equally crushing. Weather patterns included massive storms that could destroy cities, and the geological activity was so violent it regularly reshaped entire continents. How did they survive? Kethran asked himself. How did anything survive on such a world? The answer came as he studied human evolution. These creatures had not just survived on their death world, they had thrived. They had conquered every environment on their planet, from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. They lived in places that would instantly kill a Zephyrian. More data flowed across his screens. Humans were persistence hunters, capable of running for incredible distances without stopping. Their bodies were designed for endurance that no other known species possessed. They could survive injuries that would be fatal to most galactic life forms. They could function with minimal sleep, food, or water for extended periods. But the most terrifying discovery was yet to come. Kethran accessed the human data networks and began studying their history. What he found there made him understand why the battle had gone as it did. These Deathworlders had spent thousands of years fighting each other in wars that would end most civilizations. They had survived plagues, natural disasters, and conflicts that should have destroyed them completely. Instead of being weakened by these challenges, humans had grown stronger. Each disaster had taught them new ways to adapt and survive. Each war had made them better fighters and strategists. They were a species literally forged by constant struggle against impossible odds. Meanwhile, on the distant planet Earth, the news of alien contact had reached every government and military organization. In a secure briefing room deep beneath the Pentagon, Colonel Ryan Hayes stood before a wall of screens showing satellite images and intercepted alien transmissions. Colonel Hayes was a career military officer with 25 years of experience in special operations. His weathered face showed the stress of the past 3 weeks as Earth's government struggled to understand what first contact meant for humanity. Standing next to him was President Helen Carter, a former senator who had never expected to deal with alien invasions during her term in office. "The analysis is complete, Madam President," Hayes said. "The alien technology is approximately 50 years ahead of our current capabilities, but not impossibly so. Our scientists believe we can adapt and improve our defenses given enough time." General Patricia Woods, the Pentagon's top strategic planner, stepped forward. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "The real question is whether they'll give us that time. Captain Morrison's action bought us breathing room, but it also announced our presence to their entire civilization." President Carter studied the screens showing alien ship designs and weapon capabilities. "What are our options, General?" "We prepare for war," Wood said simply. "These Zephyrians have been conquering other species for centuries. They see us as just another primitive race to be enslaved or eliminated. Captain Morrison proved we can fight them, but we need to be ready for a much larger conflict." Across the room, NASA Director Dr. Kevin Stone reviewed technical specifications for faster-than-light travel. He was a brilliant physicist who had spent his career dreaming of meeting alien civilizations. The reality was proving much more dangerous than his dreams. "We have advantages they don't expect," Dr. Stone said. "Our computers are more advanced than their systems in some ways. Our military technology, while less powerful, is more flexible. Most importantly, we're used to fighting desperate battles against superior enemies." Back in space, scholar Kethran continued his research into human capabilities. He studied their literature, their entertainment, their military manuals. Everything he learned made him more afraid of what his people had awakened. Humans wrote stories about impossible victories against overwhelming odds. They celebrated heroes who refused to surrender even when facing certain death. Their entire culture was built around the idea that any challenge could be overcome through courage, intelligence, and determination. The scholar realized with growing horror that the Zephyrian collective had not encountered a primitive species to be easily conquered. They had found a race of warriors who had spent millennia preparing for exactly this kind of fight. Kethran compiled his report with trembling hands. He knew that High Command would not want to hear what he had discovered. The Zephyrians had built their empire by conquering weaker species. They had never faced enemies who were stronger, faster, and more determined than themselves. As he finished his research, one final piece of data appeared on his screen. It was a simple message transmitted from Earth to the New Horizon and intercepted by Zephyrian listening posts. "Come home safe. We'll be ready." The scholar understood that those 5 words contained a promise and a threat. Humanity would be ready for whatever came next. The Deathworlders were preparing for war, and the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. The news traveled fast through the galaxy. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, representatives from 200 different species gathered to discuss the human problem. The massive space station called Harmony Point buzzed with worried conversations and urgent meetings. Ambassador Zexhai of the Lumerian Republic stood at the center of the main assembly hall. She was a graceful being with silver skin and large golden eyes that showed her deep concern. The Lumerians were a peaceful people who had never fought a war in their 1,000-year history. The idea of a violent species from a death world terrified them. "Fellow council members," Zexhai said, her voice carrying across the vast chamber, "we face an unprecedented situation. For the first time in galactic history, a species from a Class 12 death world has achieved spaceflight and aggressive capabilities." At the far end of the hall, War Marshal Krut of the Saurian Empire slammed his massive fist on his speaking platform. Krut was 8 feet tall with dark green scales and teeth like knives. His people were the closest thing the galaxy had to a warrior race, but even they avoided death worlds. "These humans must be stopped before they spread throughout our space," Krut roared. "A death world species cannot be allowed to threaten civilized worlds. I call for immediate military action." Other voices joined the debate. The insect-like Hivari buzzed their agreement with Krut, while the energy beings of the Stellar Collective remained silent and thoughtful. Each species had their own fears about what humans might mean for the established order of galactic civilization. In the observation galleries above the main floor, Scholar Kethrin watched the proceedings with growing unease. He had presented his research to the council 3 days ago, and the reaction had been exactly what he feared. Instead of trying to understand humans, most species wanted to destroy them before they became too powerful. Meanwhile, far from the galactic core, Captain Jake Morrison commanded a small fleet of human ships on their way to make official first contact with the Galactic Council. His new flagship, the Earth's Pride, was twice the size of his old exploration vessel and carried the hopes of his entire species. Jake had been promoted to admiral after his successful defense against the Zephyrians. The battle had made him famous throughout human space, but he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. If he failed in this mission, it could mean war between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Standing beside him on the bridge was his old crew from the New Horizon. Chief Engineer Lisa Parker was now his chief of staff, her quick mind helping him navigate the complex politics of first contact. Dr. Amy Ross had become the fleet's chief medical officer, and she spent her time studying alien biology in case they encountered species that required special medical attention. "Admiral," Lisa said, looking up from her console, "we're receiving multiple alien transmissions. It looks like word of our approach has spread." Jake nodded grimly. "Any of them friendly?" "Hard to tell," Lisa replied. "Most are just observing us, but 3 different groups have sent what might be warnings to stay away from their territories." The journey to the galactic core had already proven dangerous. Twice they had been attacked by alien pirates who thought human ships would be easy targets. Both times the attackers had learned otherwise. Human crews fought with a coordination and determination that surprised everyone who witnessed it. Dr. Amy Ross joined Jake at the command station. "Admiral, I've been studying the medical data Scholar Kethrin included in his report. Most alien species have physical capabilities far below human standards. They're weaker, slower, and less resistant to injury than we are. That explains why they're so afraid of us," Jake said. "From their perspective, we must look like monsters." On Harmony Point, the debate continued to rage. Ambassador Zexhai tried to maintain order as various species argued about the human threat. The peaceful Lumerians wanted to offer humans a restricted place in galactic society. The aggressive Saurians wanted to eliminate them entirely. Then, something unexpected happened. A group of younger alien representatives began to speak in favor of humanity. Scientist Lyra An of the Ethereal Collective stood up, her translucent blue form shimmering as she addressed the assembly. "I have studied the human records that Scholar Kethron provided," Lyra An said. "Yes, these beings are incredibly capable fighters, but they are also capable of great compassion and creativity. Their art, their music, their literature show a depth of emotion and beauty that rivals any civilization we have encountered." Junior Counselor Hex2 of the Machine Synthesis agreed. His metallic form clicked and whirred as he processed data at incredible speed. The humans have shown remarkable restraint in their conflicts with other species. They could have destroyed the Zephyrian ships completely, but they chose to disable them instead. This suggests they prefer mercy over massacre. War Marshal Krut stood up angrily. "You are fools to trust these Deathworlders. Their entire evolution has been shaped by constant warfare and struggle. They know nothing but violence and conquest." The argument quickly escalated beyond mere words. Conservative factions demanded that the human fleet be turned away or destroyed before it reached the galactic core. Progressive voices insisted that humanity deserved a chance to prove their peaceful intentions. As tensions rose, Security Chief Vaxmore made the decision that would change everything. The tall, gray-skinned alien commanded the station's defense forces and believed strongly that humans were too dangerous to be allowed near the galactic capital. "Attention, human fleet," Vaxmore transmitted. "You are ordered to halt your approach immediately and submit to escort by galactic security forces." Admiral Morrison received the transmission as his fleet approached the outer boundaries of civilized space. He looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were good people who had volunteered for a mission that could determine the future of their species. "Send a reply," Jake ordered. "Tell them we're here for peaceful negotiations as requested by the Galactic Council. We have no hostile intentions." "Admiral," Lisa said quietly, "their security fleet is moving to intercept us. 20 ships all armed." Jake felt the familiar weight of command decision. He could turn around and go home, leaving humanity isolated from galactic civilization. He could submit to alien escort and hope they intended no harm. Or he could do what humans always did when faced with superior force. "Continue course," Jake said. "If they want to stop us, they'll have to explain why to the Council." Dr. Ross checked her medical scanners. "The alien ships are taking positions to surround us. Whatever they're planning, they want us contained." The stage was set for another confrontation. Humanity's small fleet continued toward the galactic core while alien security forces moved to intercept them. On Harmony Point, the Galactic Council continued their heated debate about the human question. None of them realized that within hours they would witness exactly why Deathworlders were so feared throughout the galaxy. The humans were about to show the assembled civilizations what raw human power really looked like. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the massive docking bay of Harmony Point Station, surrounded by his diplomatic team and security detail. The alien structure was unlike anything humans had ever built. Crystalline walls curved in impossible directions, while alien plants grew in patterns that hurt human eyes to look at. The air itself seemed to shimmer with unfamiliar energy. Jake wore his best dress uniform, but he felt underdressed compared to the incredible variety of alien beings moving through the station. Some floated through the air like living clouds. Others skittered across the walls on dozens of legs, and still others existed as pure energy contained in mechanical bodies. Chief of Staff Lisa Parker walked beside him, her portable computer recording everything for Earth's leaders. She had spent weeks learning basic alien customs and protocols, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of this place. Behind them, Dr. Amy Ross carried medical supplies and scanning equipment, ready to help if any of the team had trouble with the alien environment. Their security detail was led by Sergeant First Class Tony Lewis, a tough Marine who had fought in conflicts on 3 different continents back on Earth. Tony was a stocky man with careful eyes that missed nothing. His team of 6 Marines wore light armor and carried weapons designed to function in the station's unusual atmosphere. The human delegation made their way through corridors filled with alien representatives, heading to the emergency session of the Galactic Council. Many of the aliens stopped to stare at the humans, their various eyes and sensors focused on these new arrivals from a death world. In the Great Assembly Hall, the debate had been raging for hours. Ambassador Zexhai tried to maintain order as species after species voiced their opinions about humanity. The beautiful Lumerian looked exhausted from trying to moderate between the extreme positions of various factions. War Marshal Krut pounded his platform again, his massive form towering over nearby representatives. These Deathworlders have already proven their violent nature by attacking Zephyrian ships without provocation. We cannot allow them to spread their aggression throughout civilized space. Scientist Lyra-On of the Ethereal Collective responded, with calm dignity. The human attack was in self-defense after the Zephyrians attempted to enslave them. Any species would fight to protect their freedom. The argument was interrupted when the human delegation entered the hall. A hush fell over the assembled representatives as they got their first close look at the beings from Earth. Jake walked with the confident stride of a military officer, while his team moved with the disciplined coordination that marked professional soldiers. Many aliens had never seen beings that moved with such purpose and control. Most galactic species were either fragile scholars or bulky warriors who relied on superior technology. Humans seemed to combine intelligence and physical capability in ways that made other species nervous. I am Admiral Jake Morrison, representing the United Earth Government, Jake announced, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. We come here seeking peaceful relations with the Galactic Council and all member species. The translation systems carried his words to every corner of the hall, but the message was received with mixed reactions. Some aliens seemed impressed by his direct approach, while others appeared more frightened than before. Counselor Prime Rethai, the ancient leader of the Galactic Council, studied the humans from his elevated platform. The old being had lived for over 500 years and had seen many species rise and fall. Something about these humans reminded him of dangerous times in galactic history. Admiral Morrison, Rethai said, his voice crackling with age. You and your species stand accused of excessive violence and a threat to galactic stability. This council will hear evidence and decide your fate. Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he controlled it. This was exactly what he had expected. Honored Counselor, we request the right to defend ourselves against these charges. The time for defense has passed, Security Chief Vaxmore interrupted. The tall gray alien stepped forward with a squad of armed guards. By order of this council, you will be detained pending final judgment. That was when everything went wrong. The alien security forces moved to surround the human delegation, but they had made a critical error. They expected humans to surrender like every other species, when faced with superior numbers. Instead, they got their first lesson in what Deathworld evolution had created. Sergeant Tony Lewis reacted the moment he saw alien weapons being raised. His combat training kicked in automatically. Hostile contact, he shouted to his team as he dove behind a crystalline pillar. The Marines scattered and took cover with movement so fast that most aliens couldn't follow them. Within seconds, the humans had turned the assembly hall into a battlefield with themselves holding all the tactical advantages. Dr. Amy Ross pulled out her medical scanner and quickly analyzed the alien physiology around them. Their reaction times are half of ours, she called out. Most species here can't move fast enough to track us. Tony's team worked together like they had trained for years because they had. Marine Carlos Martinez flanked left while engineer Rachel Kim went right. Navigation specialist Pete Collins, who had joined the security detail, coordinated their movements with the precision of someone used to calculating complex maneuvers. The alien security forces found themselves completely outmatched. Their weapons were more powerful than human guns, but they couldn't hit targets that moved like ghosts through their formation. The humans used the aliens' own cover against them, turning decorative pillars and platforms into defensive positions. What impressed the watching council members most was that the humans weren't trying to kill anyone. Despite being attacked first, they used precise force to disable alien guards without causing permanent injury. Tony's team moved through the opposition like they were conducting a training exercise, rather than fighting for their lives. Within 10 minutes, the humans had neutralized over 30 alien security personnel without suffering a single casualty. Themselves. The Great Assembly Hall fell silent as representatives from 200 species watched 12 humans control a situation that should have been impossible for them to win. Admiral Morrison stepped out from behind cover, his uniform barely wrinkled despite the fight. "Counselor Prime, we came here for peaceful negotiations. If you wish to continue with hostile actions, we're prepared to defend ourselves." The old council leader stared at the human admiral with new understanding. These weren't primitive savages who had gotten lucky against the Zephyrians. These were professional warriors who had turned a hopeless situation into a tactical victory through superior training, coordination, and pure determination. War Marshal Krutt looked around at his disabled security forces with something approaching respect. His own Saurian warriors were the fiercest fighters in known space, but even they couldn't have moved with the deadly precision he had just witnessed. Scientist Lyra Ann floated closer to examine the unconscious guards. "Remarkable," she whispered. "They could have killed everyone in this room, but they chose restraint even while fighting for their lives." The demonstration was being broadcast throughout the galaxy. Every species that had been debating the human question could now see exactly what Deathworlders were capable of when pushed too far. The raw display of human combat effectiveness sent shockwaves through civilizations that had never imagined such capabilities were possible. Jake looked up at the Counselor Prime and the assembled representatives. "We're still willing to talk," he said simply, "but from now on we talk as equals." The Great Assembly Hall of Harmony Point had never been so quiet. 200 different species sat in stunned silence as they watched Admiral Jake Morrison stand calmly among the disabled alien security forces. The demonstration of human capabilities had changed everything in less than 15 minutes. Counselor Prime Rethai stared down at the human admiral with ancient eyes that had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. The old being's long fingers trembled slightly as he processed what he had just witnessed. In 5 centuries of leading the Galactic Council, he had never seen such a display of controlled violence. "Admiral Morrison," Rethai said slowly, his voice carrying a new respect, "your people have proven their capabilities beyond any doubt. The Council will hear your words." Jake looked around the vast chamber at the faces of aliens who had been ready to judge humanity as a threat. Now they looked at him with a mixture of fear and fascination. He knew this moment would determine whether humans joined galactic civilization or remained forever isolated from it. "Honored representatives," Jake began, his voice strong and clear. "We didn't come here to fight. We came here to find our place among the stars alongside species who share our desire for peace and progress." War Marshal Krutt shifted uncomfortably on his platform. The massive Saurian warrior had spent his life believing his people were the greatest fighters in the galaxy. What he had just seen made him question everything he thought he knew about combat and strategy. "Your fighting ability is beyond question," Krutt admitted grudgingly. "But how can we trust a species that evolved to be such perfect warriors? What stops you from conquering us all?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Jake felt the weight of his species' future on his shoulders. Every word he spoke now would be analyzed and debated by alien governments across the galaxy. "Because we choose not to," Jake said simply. "Yes, we're capable of violence when threatened, but we're also capable of mercy, cooperation, and sacrifice for others. The same evolution that made us fighters also made us protectors." In the observation galleries, Scholar Kethran watched with growing excitement. His research had told him this moment would come, but seeing it happen was something entirely different. The purple-skinned scientist had spent weeks studying human behavior, and he understood what many others missed. Kethran stood up and requested permission to speak. "Counselor Prime, if I may address the assembly?" The old leader nodded, curious to hear what the xenobiologist had to say. "Fellow representatives," Kethran began, "I have studied these humans extensively. Yes, they are incredibly dangerous fighters. But consider this, they could have killed every security guard in this room, but they chose to disable them instead. They could have destroyed the Zephyrian ships completely, but they only damaged them enough to escape. The scholar's words carried weight throughout the hall. Many species had been so focused on human capabilities that they had missed the restraint that went with them. This is the key to understanding humans, Kethran continued. Their death world didn't just make them strong and fast and dangerous. It also taught them to value life and to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Scientist Lyra An of the HFY ethereal collective floated forward, her translucent form shimmering with emotion. Scholar Kethran speaks truth. I have studied human art and literature. These beings create beauty even while living on a world that constantly tries to kill them. They write stories about heroes who sacrifice themselves to save others. The mood in the chamber began to shift. Junior Counselor Hextu added his electronic voice to the discussion. My analysis of human behavior patterns shows remarkable consistency in their desire to help weaker beings. Even their entertainment focuses on protecting the innocent rather than conquering enemies. Ambassador Zexhai saw the change happening around her and seized the moment. The Council has seen what humans can do when forced to fight. Perhaps it is time to see what they can do when offered friendship. The debate that followed was unlike any in galactic history. Instead of arguing about whether to destroy humanity, the representatives began discussing how to integrate them into galactic society. The demonstration of human power had paradoxically made them less frightening, because it came with such obvious control. Admiral Morrison listened to the discussions with growing hope. Dr. Amy Ross stood beside him, monitoring the medical conditions of the disabled guards to make sure none had been seriously injured. Chief of Staff Lisa Parker recorded everything for the leaders back on Earth. Finally, Counselor Prime Redhigh called for order. The Council will vote on the proposal to offer humanity membership in galactic civilization. The vote was closer than Jake had hoped, but decisive enough to matter. 137 species voted in favor of human membership, with 63 voting against. The remaining species abstained, choosing to wait and see how humans would behave as galactic citizens. Admiral Morrison, Redhigh announced, the Galactic Council recognizes humanity as a sovereign species with full rights to explore and colonize suitable worlds. In return, humanity agrees to respect the territorial boundaries of established civilizations and to offer aid to species in need. Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. On behalf of all humanity, I accept these terms. 6 months later, Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship as it orbited humanity's first official colony world. The planet below was a harsh place with violent storms and dangerous wildlife, but to human colonists it was just another Tuesday. They had already begun building cities and farms in conditions that would kill most galactic species. Chief Engineer Lisa Parker joined him at the observation window. The colony ship from Earth just arrived with 5,000 more settlers. They're excited to get started. Dr. Amy Ross was reviewing medical reports from the surface. The colonists are adapting well to local conditions. Some of the native plants actually have medicinal properties that work better on humans than on other species. Jake smiled as he watched human engineers working alongside alien technicians to build the orbital space dock. The cooperation that had begun in the council chambers was continuing as humans shared their knowledge of dangerous environment survival with species who had never faced such challenges. The transformation had been remarkable. What started as fear of human violence had become respect for human capabilities. Alien species were asking for human help with problems that required courage and endurance. Human soldiers were serving as peacekeepers in dangerous regions where other species couldn't survive. More importantly, humans were learning from their new galactic neighbors. Alien technology was advancing human medicine and engineering. Peaceful species were teaching humans new forms of art and philosophy. The galaxy was becoming richer because humans were part of it. Scholar Kethran had been right about human nature. They were Deathworlders who had evolved to survive anything the universe could throw at them. But they were also builders, protectors, and dreamers who wanted to make the galaxy better for everyone. As Jake watched the sunset paint the colony world's sky in brilliant colors, he knew that humanity had found its place among the stars. The Deathworlders had been unleashed not as conquerors, but as guardians of a galaxy that was finally big enough for everyone.